So for my last project tonight, I think I'd like to do the heart pendant, and we'll do my take on the heart pendant. Here we go. Start with, it's going to roughly look like that, because that's kind of like what the heart looks like. We're going to do this on about an 8 to 10 millimeter white rod, and we are going to encase that in some garnet, and then we're going to heat that mass up. We're going to let it round out, and then taking a tool like a knife edge, a scissors, a dental tool, whatever, we're going to kind of divide it into the two lobes. Then we're going to add the aorta, that's going to be rust, and then we're going to do the superior and inferior vena cavas and the pulmonary stuff over there. And then we will add on some small vessels here in the rust and the cobalt over white, and maybe even some fatty tissue while we're at it. But this is a quick list of the colors we're going to use. The heart, garnet over white. The aorta is rust, superior and inferior vena cavas, cobalt over white. Arteries are going to be rust. Veins, again, cobalt over white. It's a real simple palette, but it makes a really pretty little heart pendant. And if we do the fatty tissue, and I think we will, that's going to be amber over white. That's a good color combination. They'll all match nicely. They all got similar COEs, and there won't be any problems with compatibilities. So anyway, let's get on to our heart pendant. This will be fun for Valentine's Day.
Alright, here's a stick of garnet. It's a nice, interesting color to work with. It will go kind of clear on you while you're working it. It's a striking color. It'll somewhat strike on its own when I finish working it, and just let it cool a little bit. But it can also be flame struck or kiln struck, and you can get different intensities. But I'm going to try to do most of my color striking in the flame, and when I put it in the kiln, I pretty much want the colors to be done at that point, and that way I can gauge the intensity of the reds. So anyway, I'm going to pull this down into a little stringer. It's starting off as about a 6 or 7 mil rod, and I'm making it about the same size as the 4 mil rod that I'm using in clear for a handle. And I'm just going to heat up a little shoulder of the glass and let the flame angle up to the right, and with my left hand proceed to pull out about a 4 mil stringer. I like pulling it this way because I can pull out different sizes. For one, very quickly, I could pull out a bunch of 6 mil, then pull out some 4 mil and cut it in half and have both, as opposed to, say, heating up an entire length of glass and then making one stretch where everything will come out the same diameter. There we go. Let it just go in vertical there for a moment to make sure I got my right hand handle straight. There we go. Cut that off and take some tweezers, cut off a little bit more of that stringer to set aside, and this will be the color that goes over the big old 12 millimeter or so white rod. And then these are some little remnants I've got of some cobalt over white, which I'm going to use for the pulmonary artery and a couple of other things. And the red stringers there, the really fine ones, are rust that I've already pulled down. Those will be to make the cardiac vessels. So here we go. It looks clear, but that's actually the red colored garnet on the right. And it'll begin striking almost as soon as we put it on, and a little bit of flame wrap around and heat it up. Just lots of raking. Try to space them out so that you're not overlapping them, but get them shoulder to shoulder so that they're smooth. Fill in the voids. Now each of those has a slightly different end on it. I'm going to go just a few times around it, starting down at the end of where I've raked to, and that will be a little bit smoother shoulder. And the heart has kind of a different look at the top and bottom. It's got a bunch of vertical bands, and it's got an area where it's got horizontal bands too. There we go. Now that's plenty of material to make the heart. In fact, I'm going to separate it just short of the end, because when I finish the heart and strike it, I don't want to have just a pure white bottom on it. So when I marver it down here to separate out the material for the heart, I will include some of the garnet covered stuff in the part that I remove. There we go. Just neck out the material that's going to become the heart. There's our material, and as it cools, it'll strike just a little bit and we'll start seeing more reds. The dental tool is really good for putting a little cleavage line between the left and right lobes. But I think before I do that, I'll take another graphite paddle and give it just a little bit of flat so that there's some front and backness to it instead of being perfectly round. Just a little bit, and it's got a rocking motion to it so that it kind of rounds the corners instead of giving it a flat surface. Then we'll separate our lobes, just a little gentle work there. And now we've got our basic traditional heart design. And for any of you who want to stop there, add a loop and cut it off, and you've got a heart pendant traditional style. So a little bit of flame, and we can see the red come in. Yeah, that'll make a good heart. It looks very organic with the white showing through in places. Just out of one color would be too monochromatic, really. You know, there are a lot of variations in those colors. It's a very organic thing. So having those multiple tones, I believe it helps. So let's see, we're working on the pulmonary artery right now. Which this would be the one bringing in the oxygen-deprived blood from the lungs. And since this is looking more like kind of the models you would see from a medical text, the ends of the vessels and the arteries, I'm going to flatten them down with the back side of the dental tool just like that, and then take a pointy tool and come in and push it in. And it's going to look like a tube that's been cut off, and that's the effect that we're going for. And the way that the cobalt over white works, when we push it in, it looks like a tube with a white interior and a blue exterior, which is a good effect. So this is rust. This is going to be our aorta. It'll also be the loop for this as a pendant. Make it big, a little bit oversized from reality, but we want to leave enough room for somebody to thread a cord through there or a small chain. And again, we're going to cut that off and then flatten the end and do the little thing with our pointy tool. And here just enlarging it and controlling the shape of the loop. And there are several small junctions there on the aorta, so we're just going to put about 3 of those on, and the same little thing where we flatten them and put the pointy tool down the center. So here we go. We're going to add on the superior vena cava. And I just noticed it earlier, and I said that that was coming from the lungs. On the pulmonary, it's going to the lungs. All of these that are blue over white are oxygen deprived, and the rust or the red ones are the oxygen enriched. For those of you who care about detail. Marvering your material down in that little backing plate immediately trues it up, squares it out, and makes it ready to apply with a good heat base in it, yet it's straight. I'd really recommend using those quite often. And cleaning up your materials before you put them away. You have nice ready to go glass rods with no fish hooks on the end to catch you if you're rooting through it with your hand looking for something. Go. A few little more indentions at the end. And then we've got the inferior vena cava. And once again, the little dental tool to flatten the end, and then the pointy tool to make it look like a tube that's been cut. Now we're ready to do the final details, which is going to be the small vessels on the outside of the cardiac muscle. And we're going to lay that down over some fatty tissue. And the fatty tissue is, again, amber over white. Just little tiny dots of it. You're going to go in kind of a V pattern down the front of the heart and back up the other side. And that'll also be where those major cardiac vessels are located. Right over the top of that tissue. There we go, just lots of little bumps of it. Cool, you can kind of see it. So now for the small vessels, there's some really fine rust pulled out into a very thin stringer. I like rust because it's very reliable. It stays the color that you want it and does not strike erratically. So both sides right over the fatty tissue. A little bit in the back just so that it's got some there. There we go. A few more smaller, finer vessels at the ends. And then right over the top of that we will do the oxygen deprived vessels in the blue over white stringer. look kind of like upside down trees with no leaves, just a bunch of branches. Yeah, put a good amount of heat to it, make sure the whole thing has no acute angles, that there are no cracks or any design flaws that you want to change right now while you still can. A little bit of twist there so that it hangs on a cable or a cord the way that I'd like it to be viewed. That's it. A little bit of heat to finish striking that out. Separate it off a little bit there, and then we'll grab some tweezers and hook up to the loop, aka the aorta, and we'll go back and forth and just draw that off. And remember, that's going to be red all the way to the very bottom, even though when it's cut now it'll look a little bit white from being very hot yet. Yep, clean up my white rod. It'll actually have a little red end on it when it cools, but that'll be useful for the next project I do. Finish heating up that little bottom area, and now we can take a quick look there. We're looking at the back side, unfortunately, but here's a shot of the front. Oops, sorry, we're still in the back there. Yeah, there's the front. Well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you all want to play a little bit with looking at your own art and going, okay, what do they really look like? Let's do that. Well, thank you much. Please like and subscribe.